welcome to the program.
Thank you very, very much, Tom.
Thank you for being with us last night on our RT Free Speech TV show. I wanted to get you on the radio here for a different group of listeners to basically hear your story of this. I had no idea that there was nuclear waste sitting on top of these reactors. Explain to us what this is, how it works, how it came about, all that kind of stuff.
Well, these reactors that we're seeing explode, burn, fume radioactivity in Fukushima, Daiichi, are General Electric Mark I boiling water reactors. These are basically the Model Ts of the nuclear industry. They're the very early vintage designs that were constructed in the 1960s, came online in the early 70s. And so, by 1972, here in the United States, we found out through the Atomic Energy Commission that these were substandard designs. However, because the AEC was eventually retired because it was a promotional agency, they never shut them down. Even though we knew it was a substandard containment. But
they never shut them down. You mean the Japanese, or are there designs like this in the United States as well?
Yeah, we have 36 of these same reactors with the containment system and the fuel pools on the roof. The situation is that the way they're designed, the reactor vessel, the lid opens up and they can take the used fuel and move it out through a fuel channel filled with water and load it into these pools. And
up above the reactor.
Yeah, these pools are 6 to 10 stories up in the reactor. In the reactor building, they are above the reactor containment system and are essentially under nothing more than a weather cover. So we've got a 40-foot swimming pool that sits at this elevation, and they're covered in basically sheet metal covers to keep the weather and rain and snow, all that out of it. But what's happened is that in Japan, it's now being dramatically revealed that the first two explosions at Fukushima 1 and 3 blew these weather covers off because of the generation of hydrogen gas, and that ignited, and very dramatic explosions. And now that leaves the surface of these pools open to the atmosphere, and they've been boiling because they've lost cooling, and actually they've lost cooling to all 6 of these elevated storage ponds.
Wow.
The water is boiling off at Fukushima 4, which had been shut down and during the earthquake and had presented no problem in the early days. The water boiled off because this fuel is super hot.
The spent fuel we're talking about here.
The spent fuel,
right,
which is now out of containment. It's been taken out of the reactor vessel, out of the containment, and put into the rooftop pool and into this sort of Quonset hut kind of structure. And when the cooling was lost to the reactor site, that means the cooling was lost to the reactor, and the cooling was lost to these elevated rooftop nuclear waste storage ponds. And because the cooling has not been restored, or it's been off and on, the pools have started to boil. And as water boils, and as it boils off, it exposed fuel, the tops of the fuel at the Fukushima 4 reactor. And when you expose fuel, it generates the nuclear fuel generates hydrogen gas and oxygen. Right. As it gases off with the radioactivity, it's gassing off these explosive hydrogen and oxygen. It finds an ignition source eventually, and the Fukushima 4 was then the 4th explosion. When I was on your show last night, we only had 3, right, but soon after we found out that there's now been a fourth explosion. It was in one of these elevated storage ponds as a result of exposing the tops of fuel to the air. It ignited, you got the gas, it blew up, and it's blown a wall out of this pool. And so in Unit 4, so now we've got...
So there's no more water cooling down the waste, the nuclear waste.
Yeah, we don't have a real accurate picture of the stated condition, because if you get too close, you're dead. Because this stuff is it's not only extremely hot, it's extremely radioactive, and it's sending off a lethal shine if you get too close to it, as well as gassing.
This is why they evacuated the workers from the plant?
The workers we don't know the full status of that, but the New York Times reported that Tokyo Electric Power Company was evacuating workers from the control rooms, and this has been an issue all along, that if one reactor goes into full-scale meltdown, it jeopardizes the lives of the operators in the other 5 reactors, and it becomes a chain reaction of losing not only control of the reactor technically, but the people are leaving the site.
Now, Paul, we just have 2 minutes left. If first of all, these guys like at Chernobyl could conceivably be dead men walking right now. The 50 that are reported to be valiantly staying there and trying to keep this thing going. In addition to that, the now uncovered at number 4, no longer covered by water, nuclear waste, that uranium is combustible. That can burn, explode, and be that could be a dirty bomb worse than any of the TSA scenarios for what the horrors of a dirty bomb in the United States, could it not?
Absolutely. This accident scenario that's unraveling now is potentially much, much worse than the Chernobyl accident. Remember, there are those same fuel pools in 1, which had the explosion, 2, which had an internal explosion, has ruptured the containment. Then there was the dramatic mushroom cloud explosion over 3. Now we have a 4th explosion in 4 in the fuel pool, and 5 and 6, the water's boiling off as we speak.
Wow. So this now the Brookhaven National Laboratory said that in a single pool, if a single pool went down, I think they were looking at Indian Point, it would kill 100 people within a range of 500 miles immediately, 138,000 people eventually, and it would contaminate 2,170 miles. Is that the kind of scenario we're looking at, or are we looking at that scenario times 5?
We're looking at global contamination. In fact, this is really a nightmare that is unfolding and will be changing moment to moment.
And this assumes that the nuclear reactors themselves don't breach or melt down. This is just the waste.
Absolutely. Unit 2 is actually already breached the containment.
Amazing. Paul Gunter, beyondnuclear.org is the website. He is the Director of Reactor Oversight. Paul, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.